We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Ben Svinsky. I'm the host of our first ever webinar series on Facebook, the Brass Ring of Health Education Series. And I'm going to introduce our speakers tonight. But first off, we have some background noise. I know that because we're at a coffee shop, but we're just going to continue. And if you can't hear us, just send a text message and we'll make adjustments as needed. And my name is Ben Svinsky. I'm the owner of Edit, which is a personal health information and wellness business in Lee Summit, Missouri. Edit stands for Educate, Discover, Inspire, and Train. And it's a concept to help you learn more about yourself, your health and well-being, and hopefully inspire others to improve their health and well-being. One of our guest speakers is Dr. Brennan Comerford. Dr. Comerford is a chiropractic physician who specializes in internal and functional medicine principles and practices. He assesses risk for disease and then why the risks exist by looking at how well the body's metabolic pathways are functioning through evaluating genetic traits and their epigenome. Micronutrient deficiency, toxicity, inflammation, oxidation, and more are tailored to optimizing your body and its environment. Even more importantly, it's the emphasis on education, empowering you with the knowledge behind treatments to bring you autonomy in managing your health. Great treatments get you healthy. Great knowledge keeps you healthy. And okay, thank you, Brenda. We will try to make adjustments for that, or possibly we might be able to have our guest speakers move in closer. I appreciate that feedback. And then Terry Belser, I'm going to pull up her bio here. Terry Belser is a local grower, natural food grower. And Terry began with a green thumb with a mother who loved to grow flowers and grandparents that farmed. She developed a deep love and respect for land and nature. Her life changed over a decade ago when debilitating migraines forced her into disability. A healing journey ensued, enabling Terry to come out of disability and return to the workforce, this time as an entrepreneur. Her curiosity and passion about natural growing and healing methods have resulted in organics vegetable shares, bringing pure food to families all over the Kansas City metropolitan area. Her entrepreneurial and caring spirit has also resulted in her branching out into flowtrition and exploring the power of herbs. Her passion and desire to help empower others and taking charge of their own health has led her down a truly incredible and abundant path. She wants to take you there too. So this is going to be kind of an interactive discussion with both Terry and with Dr. Brennan. But first I want to try to get everybody on level set on why we're calling this the Brass Ring of Health. The Brass Ring of Health, as you know, is, and we chose the Brass Ring of Health because the brass ring is elusive. It's something that we all try to strive for on this carousel of life. Many of us just don't feel good. We struggle with different diets, different exercises, and all of us know someone who has had a chronic illness like diabetes or cancer or heart disease. And it's always an elusive thing when we're trying to stay healthy. Americans in the 5 levels of health. And I'm going to describe this as being something that is somewhat of a different concept, but we have 5 levels of health here in America. We have those that are healthy, those that think they're healthy. We have people who are sick. We have people who are sicker, and then we have the sickest people. Sickest have symptoms of cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. Some of our chronic illness trends, by the year 2030, over half the United States is going to have some form of chronic illness. That's close to 170 million people. So our concern as a team here with Dr. Brennan, myself, and with Terry is to help understand how you can improve and avoid those chronic illnesses. So the Brass Ring of Health really means increased longevity, improved physical performance, peak mental awareness, you're bright and energetic, spiritually centered, and it's all information driven. We want you to get this information and that's fact-based so you understand how you can optimize your health. The things we're going to talk about tonight are food, nutrition, exercise, stress, and sleep and meditation, and how all those interact with your body. So I'm going to kick off the question, and we're going to start it off by basically asking a question about sugar. Average consumption of sugar in the 1900s was about 25 pounds a year. Our average consumption in 2016 is 180 pounds a year. And I think that's important for all of us to understand that our sugar consumption has just gone out of this world over the past 100 years. So I'm going to ask this question to our panel. And the first question is to Dr. Comerford. And Dr. Comerford, you may have to speak up a little bit.
Okay.
But what does too much sugar do to our bodies when we're in this environment today where we're eating and consuming hundreds of pounds of sugar?
When it comes to sugar, the best example that was ever laid out to me is think of sugar as basically being on acid. It is an acid, and your body's meant to handle it in certain amounts that we far exceed in our natural diet today. When your body's trying to digest meals, the first thing it has to do after the food moves through the stomach is it has to get all the acid out of the digestive tract, because in the colon it needs the opposite. It needs to be a basic environment. So to do that, it shunts all this acidic sugar straight into your blood. Well, now that you don't have all this acid in your digestive tract, you have all this acid in your bloodstream. The bloodstream is even more important to keep balance between acids and bases, and so therefore a bunch of other mechanisms kick in. One of those is insulin. So over time, if you have a very high sugar diet, you have excess insulin in the body, eventually what happens is insulin's job is to shunt sugar into cells. And back to my point of eventually, cells will also then take on all the sugar, keeping the blood safe and balanced. With cells, they have to protect themselves. So now what they do is they start saying no to insulin. Now you become insulin resistant and you're on a road to diabetes. The other way your body handles sugar in the bloodstream is by turning it into fats. Sugar is what gets turned into the type of fats that very much increase your risk for heart disease. It creates what they call small LDLs. These are the type of LDLs that go into the lining of the circulatory system and help start creating plaque, which over decades of time will either lead to stroke, heart disease, high blood pressure, and a bunch of other issues. And then of course you have cancer, but that's a little bit more complicated. But the inflammatory aspect of it really can lead to causing cancer risk as well.
Okay. And I think...
Can't add anything to that. That was awesome.
Yeah, and I think that, and I'm going to ask this question to our food grower, Terry Belser. When we talk about sugars and we talk about sugar in our diet, do we get a lot of, in terms of the food you grow, is it low sugar content, high sugar content? Is it natural sugar? For what you grow, is it a good form of sugar?
Nature is amazing because nature's got it figured out. It doesn't make stuff that is wrong. It really doesn't. So when you're, I know like grapes, for example, they will go into the vineyard and they will measure what they call bricks, which is the sweetness of the grape. So, but it won't. The nature won't allow it to overproduce sugar. It won't allow the plants to produce more than you actually need. So our bodies are actually designed, in my opinion, our bodies are designed to get what we get from nature. There is no added sugar. We don't add sugar to fruits and vegetables when we grow things. We're not adding anything like that. There's natural sugars in there, but it is balanced and it's meant to be there.
Very good. Those are two excellent responses from our panel with regard to sugar and what it does to our body and what differentiates good normal food from the soil versus what we buy at the store a lot of times. And that's a good segue for me to ask this question. Where does good nutritious food come from? And I'm going to direct this to Terry first. But where does good, nutritious food come from? Where does it start?
It starts with the soil, and the way I look at it is the gardens that you have now are kind of like your grandparents' gardens. So, what I look for when I'm looking for food is where was it grown? How sustainable was it grown in? Is it in an environment where there's no chemicals or pesticides? Is there care and attention being made to that garden? Because that's an important component that a lot of people don't think about. So those are the things that I look for. When I'm looking for nutritious food, I would encourage everybody, go to your farmers markets, and you're not going to find the most nutritious food in a box, because there's a lot of additives there. The most nutritious food you're going to find is going to come from the farm, going to come from the vegetable aisle in your grocery store. That's where you're going to find the best sources of food, in my opinion.
Great response. And Dr. Comerford, I want to talk to you a little bit about when you eat good foods, that are, I'll say, natural in sugar and healthy, how does that affect your body in general? What would you see as a result of eating good food, like something from Terry's garden or something organic?
Most natural sources of sugar are typically lower glycemic index. That's typically what is defined, one sugar source being better than the other. Natural sources are lower glycemic index, which means that sugar is released slower in the digestive process, so you don't have that buildup of acid in the body. The other thing I would say is, when she didn't say the fruit aisle, she said the vegetable aisle. And most of your key vegetables, spinach, kale, they are technically a carbohydrate, but when you eat spinach or kale, it's a negative calorie food is what they call it. In other words, it takes you more calories to break it down in your digestive system than the amount of calories you get out of it, which means the sugar in those is released slowly and in an amount that your body is basically immediately using and actually reverses the buildup of sugar-like acids in the body.
Great response. I think that if you have a pen and pencil, write this information down, because this is all great information for our web viewers. And please share this with your friends as we're having this conversation. We are on the Brass Ring of Health webinar series, and there might be a little bit of background noise. I apologize for that, but we're going to improve upon this as we get better sound system. And we have a little bit more background noise. We're at our favorite coffee shop in the world, Gusto's, in Lee Summit, Missouri. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I call the Standard American Diet. Standard American Diet, which is also an acronym, we can call the acronym SAD. Standard American Diet is overprocessed food, and that our food industry is designed for rapid manufacturing and transport of our food. Today's food is much different than the food of 50 years ago, and it's also much different from one of our professional food growers who grow here in Lee Summit. And it represents unbalanced nourishment. So unbalanced nourishment means you're not getting all the nutrients from the soil that you really need to retain your health. And I want to talk a little bit about the food industry a little bit and get our food grower, Terry Belser, get her commentary on what she thinks, well, not so much about what you think, but about overprocessed food and the manufacturing processes. You grow natural food.
Right.
And so you basically tell us a little bit about your process and what you do when you grow food.
We augment our soil using natural means, meaning we use natural fertilizers. We do not use chemicals, and when we grow, we will use a practice called co-planting, which means that I will plant certain herbs together with certain vegetables or certain plants so that it helps raise the immunity of those plants. They help each other. They help raise each other's immune systems, basically. So we do that, and then the cool thing about what we do too is we are local. So eating local actually does a lot for you, because what that does is that eliminates the transportation time. A lot of things that you get in the grocery store has been transported 3, 4, 5 days, sometimes more. It's either been flown, and in that process, it does decrease its nutritive value. So I'm a great big proponent, obviously, of eating local as best you can. I mean, yeah, my husband went and bought me a mango smoothie. That's a treat, but we try to eat local and fresh as much as we can.
And your comments that if you are going to buy it like Costco, buy frozen,
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
And that's because the frozen vegetables typically don't need the preservatives to make it last the 5 days, because the freezing process does that, correct?
Right.
And it also slows down oxidation,
Right.
breaking down.
So
I do.
I have a question on the, what did you call it, where you plant other vegetables, you cross plant?
I co-plant.
Co-plant. Does co-planting mitigate or eliminate the use of pesticides when you're growing? Is that part of the co-planting concept?
Yes, it decreases the amount. I personally do not use any pesticides or chemicals in my garden at all. However, the FDA does allow that you can use certain things. It's in their guidelines. So there are some people who can use certain things, but they are FDA approved. I choose not to, and the farmers that we deal with also choose not to. But the co-planting, what it does is it just strengthens. It's like the buddy system, of the plants, like beans, corn, and tomatoes, the three sisters. The beans vine up the corn stalk, but it also puts nitrogen into the soil, which makes the tomatoes grow better. So
Right.
You're doing those kinds of things. So everybody is helping everybody else.
Right. So ultimately what you're doing by co-planting, you're adding those nutrients in the soil so you don't have to use the artificial fertilizer and those kinds of things, right? Is that kind of what we're...
Kinda, yeah.
Okay.
You're boosting the immune system of everything.
Got it.
You've got comment.
No, I was just going to ask you to go ahead and go into the difference between organic and non-GMO, which, by the way, federal law now has been passed that even if a state wanted to regulate foods to be labeled GMO, they cannot do it. It's all being done on a barcode scanner, so a lot of foods that have the barcode are probably not the best choice, and you can just walk away from it in the grocery store. But GMO labeling was withheld, so states that are already doing GMO labeling, they have to renege on those laws. And so when you're going to the store, you don't know what's GMO. 90% of almonds, GMO. I think it's like 85% of apples is GMO. Even your fruits and vegetables are GMOs. Everybody's on top of wheat
Yeah.
and grain GMOs, but all your fruits and vegetables are genetically modified organisms at this point, and you really have to watch what you're eating. That's another reason to buy locally, because the local farmers aren't using genetically modified seeds, but organic, genetically modified, all natural, the differences.
Yeah. When we plant, I really like using the heirloom varieties of things. I do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, they've got better flavor. Number two, I am very opposed to genetically modified things, because from a scientific point of view, I just don't know what it's going to do to my body. It's going to do inside my body. Heaven knows what it's going to do inside, like, my kids or my grandchildren's bodies, because our bodies have gone through this process, and we just don't know. I mean, this is such new technology, we don't know. So I don't want to take that chance. But I really like the heirloom varieties, and the people that we deal with and what I personally grow are heirloom varieties. So yeah, and GMOs are, yeah. Somebody had, I once, this was about 4 or 5 years ago, but there's a type of strawberry now that actually has Icelandic fish DNA in it, so it is frost resistant. And to me, that's crazy.
Right. So GMO food is becoming more prevalent in our stores, and so genetically modified organics. What about our meat and poultry? What kind of artificial process do we see in that in terms of growing?
Well, hold on.
Okay.
What I want to throw in there is organic does not mean non-GMO.
Exactly.
Non-GMO does not mean it's not organic. Or if it is non-GMO, it doesn't mean that it's organic. And all natural is different than both of those. All natural in some ways is better than organic, not in others.
Right.
And it just kind of depends on how you read the law and how they label it.
Right.
And
So
meat processes.
So labeling is important,
Yes.
so that buyers can understand kind of what they're buying. And there are some labels that, as far as the barcode goes, if it's barcoded under the current, I guess, regulations, we're not going to see whether a food is GMO or not. Is that correct? I mean, we're not going to be able to identify what's GMO and non-GMO.
And even if it is organic and processed, talk about what we talked about before we started, the Aldi's.
Oh, yeah.
Speak up.
So we've got a grandson, and I was looking through one of the stores, and they've got organic baby food, and they've got organic, or not organic, but they had formula. Well, the very first thing, I looked at the labels, and the very first ingredient in the formula was sugar. It was cane sugar. Didn't say organic, but they also had like the little organic food pouches right next door. So reading labels is really, really important if you're going to be looking for things. The other thing I would say, just as an aside, is that's one of the reasons why I encourage people to get to know your farmer, insist, ask questions, and insist. If you really, really, really care about it, go walk their farms, ask them, because if they are in the barn and they're hiding stuff and shuffling, then you might be thinking twice about that.
What can people do going to their store and talking to a store owner, like a Hy-Vee or a Walmart? Can buyers and the public influence those stores to change what they're buying?
Oh, absolutely. We ran across a Hy-Vee. We ran across the fish manager at one of the Hy-Vee stores, and we started talking to her about it. That particular fish counter, they were only bringing in sustainably grown fish, which means that they are farmed. Some of them are farmed, but they aren't in these great big huge cesspools that you hear about. You know, the nightmare you hear about. So talk to them, and if you go in and you ask, you know, they've got those little boxes at the front, the little suggestion boxes. Start dropping it in there and saying, hey, this is what we want. I think that's where our power is, and that's what we can do, is keep insisting that we get the food in our stores and in our public places that you want.
Right.
Even, I saw it on the news this week, even McDonald's is updating their menu again. Now they're eliminating preservatives. I forgot on what menu items, but I think it's some of their chicken, and I want to say some of their items. They're starting to remove artificial preservatives and trying to make their menus slightly more healthy. Now, slightly more healthy doesn't mean eat at McDonald's, but what it does mean is even McDonald's is going to follow a capitalist market, because that's what they're built on. So if people are saying, we want grass-fed hamburger, they're going to make sure it's in there. Oh, I know what they're taking out high fructose corn syrup out of the buns. That was a big deal, but you know, they're still selling pop, so you know, it's all the same. But you know, steps forward or steps forward. And what that shows is that people are wanting healthier options, and even McDonald's is making strides in that direction. So, one more thing.
Great. We're kind of running short on time. I wanted to cover some other topics, primarily kind of get into stress and sleep and those other factors, exercise, stress, and sleep, but I don't think we're going to have enough time. So I think what we can do is, if we want to, we can wrap up a little bit early. We've got about 4 more minutes. Or we can ask the viewers out there, if you have any questions, feel free to message us and we can try to answer any questions you have. We're live tonight, our first webinar, Facebook Live event, the Brass Ring of Health Education Series. We're here with Dr. Brennan Comerford, and who's the owner of Integral Health in Olathe, Kansas, and Terry Belser, owner of Organics Vegetable Shares. She's a organic grower here in the Kansas City area, and I can honestly say that her food is better than organic. I have to say that because it's wonderful products that she has. And my name is Ben Skalitsky. I'm the owner of Edit, personal health information and wellness business. Edit stands for Educate, Discover, Inspire, and Train. And we're live at Gusto's Coffee Shop in Lee Summit, Missouri. So if we have any people who are watching that want to type in a question, we have a couple minutes to answer questions. We'd be more than happy to.
And Ben, you asked about meat, so I really quickly want to talk about that just a smidge.
Okay, so we asked about meat and what artificial processes that are used for meat. Okay,
Right.
now let's talk about that.
It's the same thing. I mean, it's the same thing as what we're doing with our children. You know, you're vaccinating them, so you're giving the animal growth hormone, and you're giving the animals antibiotics. I'm not saying one way or the other where I'm for or against, but what I am saying is this is basic nature. This is basic food chain stuff. If it's going in our animals, guess what, guys? If we're eating it, it's going in us too, which is one of the reasons why, and I'll turn it over to you, you're seeing adolescents hitting our children at a much earlier age because there's so much being built up in their systems. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're probably hitting more on xenoestrogens, estrogen sources from outside the body, other hormones that are speeding up processes.
Right.
They're also talking about how that affects children in the womb and where those developmental changes actually take place with how they're going to develop. There's a lot of questions out there still on that. The bottom line is the antibiotics reinforce bacteria that are antibiotic resistant. So you're eating foods that could possibly promote bacteria that your body's going to have a harder time fighting. The hormones, we just kind of spoke on that. It could change not just children but anybody in a lot of different ways. You want to look for hormone-free, but to cap it off, you don't want your cattle on grains either. You don't want them eating GMOs. You want them to have an organic, grass-fed, pasture-fed type of lifestyle. You also want them moving a lot. You don't want them grown to be fat. I don't want to eat diabetes. I don't want to eat heart disease. And if you think that cows react to high carbohydrate diets, they react the exact same way we do. They're going to be more unhealthy. They're going to have unhealthy types of fats rather than healthy types of fats, and you're eating that. It's going to be reflected in every aspect. The nutrient density in their meat, everything's going to be reflected based off of what their lifestyle and diet is. And if you're eating to live, then you want them to eat to live too.
Wonderful. I do have a question from Jim from Lathrop, Missouri. And the question is to you, Dr. Comerford. Is acupressure as good as acupuncture?
No. That's my personal opinion. And this comes from somebody who does acupressure, and I don't actively do acupuncture with my patients. I've had both done, and acupressure has amazing effects, but I'm not sure if it's as effective as acupuncture. Where my question comes in is, by the time I set up acupuncture, would I have been able to do more with acupressure along with other soft tissue techniques? And it's kind of a give or take. It's what style you have as a professional, and that's why they call it practice. It's just, what do you feel like is going to be the most results for the time I'm spending with that individual?
Great, that's a great comment. We have about a minute left, and Jim, reply to that response. If that sounded like that's something that was good information for you, we'd like to hear back from you. Again, we're about 40 seconds away from wrapping up our first webinar series, the Brass Ring of Health webinar series with Dr. Brennan Comerford and our guest speaker, Terry Belser, organic food grower, or better than organic food grower, here in south of Kansas City, Missouri, and Lee Summit, Missouri. And we're live at Gusto's Coffee Shop in Lee Summit, Missouri. Are there any more questions out there before we wrap it up? We've got about another 30 seconds. All right, well, folks, we're going to wrap it up tonight. And again, this will be transferred to YouTube, I'm sure, so that you can watch it on there. And also, I'd like to say special thanks to Gusto's Coffee Shop, Terry Belser, and Dr. Brennan Comerford for this live broadcast tonight. And also, I just wanted to bring, for all of you that are viewing tonight, Dr. Comerford will provide you a free consultation. Just look him up on Facebook, Integral Health Center, and he'll, or call him. You can find his information on the web, and he'll give you a free consultation. So I want to appreciate all of, thank you for all of you who attended tonight. I appreciate it, and we'll be signing off.
IntegralYourLife.com.
IntegralYourLife.com, and that's the website. So we really appreciate it, and we will have these continually on, probably in another month or less. We're going to improve the audio and improve the video too, but we really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got, the only thing you got was everybody liked it. I was getting a couple of hits.